Hi and welcome. It's Jennifer Britton, the author of Effective Group Coaching and the host of the Group Coaching Design Studio. Want to welcome you back. It is time for Blab number 5, and it's great to have many of you join me. Today we're going to be playing around with visuals. Visuals are a really powerful tool in our work with groups and teams, and so today I've brought some props. Behind me you'll see a blank board. I'm going to be sharing with you the Conversation Sparker cards as well as a couple of other visual decks you may want to be bringing into your work. This is Blab number 5, and it's been really exciting to see how the Blabs are starting to gain momentum. A majority of you do listen to this after the fact by recording, so you can always be accessing this through Blab. Also, you can be accessing this through Twitter and YouTube. So a couple of announcements before we get going into our topic today, which is 6 ways to use visual cards. Next Blab number 6, is going to be held Friday, December the 4th at 9 a.m. Eastern. That call will be on 24 coaching themes you might want to think about in 2016. Blab 7, which is going to be held on Friday, December 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern, is going to be about more prep, helping you prepare for the year ahead. You might recall that last week's Blab number 4 here at the Group Coaching Design Studio, was all about getting people into some action and some movement around their vision, helping them reflect back on 2015 and think forward to 2016. So that Blab is, of course, available to you. You can find it at https:/blab.im/Jenn Britton, JENN BRITTON. It is the day before American Thanksgiving, and I want to wish all of you that will be celebrating tomorrow a great Thanksgiving. I hope that it's full of family time, time with loved ones, as well as good food and good conversation. That's really what our work is as coaches. It's all about creating a better conversation space. So I brought some of my favorite tools into today's conversation with you, and we're going to be looking at 6 different ways to use visual cards. I think many of you have probably, if you've ever seen me speak virtually or live, I love bringing different card decks into the conversation. It is a way to be getting and sparking conversations. And whether you're a coach, a trainer, a leader, or even a facilitator, these are resources that I hope you will be using as you get going. So I'm going to just send a little note saying that we are on air, and really hoping that we'll have a few more people joining us today as we experiment with the visual card decks that I've brought with you. Now, I'm very sensitive to copyright, so I want to share with you a couple of at a very high level, some of the other visual decks that's available. I'm going to be using the Conversation Sparker cards today, which are a visual deck I launched in the spring of 2014. And in fact, it was precisely because of this, really wanting to make sure that I was keeping intact other people's copyright. But visual cards are a great thing. And just here, I've got my prop chair in front of me, so excuse me as I just bend over a little bit. A couple of decks that you might have heard of include Visual Explorer. So the Center for Creative Leadership came out with the Visual Explorer deck back in, I would say, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And it is a wonderful colored deck. Again, you can go to their website, Center for Creative Leadership, look up Visual Explorer. This is a deck I invested in years ago. It is their photos, so I want to respect their copyright, but it's a fantastic tool to be sparking conversation. What I found as I took these decks around the world was the fact that, one, they weren't quite as portable as I needed. As luggage rates have restricted, it was really hard for me to carry 300 cards for a workshop or a keynote that I was doing. And in fact, over the years, I've had the great opportunity to bring visual cards into a wide variety of conversation spaces. I've done keynotes with police officers. I've done oodles of workshops and conferences with HR professionals. I brought it into workshops and retreats with women, stay-at-home moms, professionals in the safety industry. So cards are a great way to spark conversation, and that led me last year to launch the Conversation Sparker cards. You'll notice a much smaller size, and in the Conversation Sparker cards, we have both questions. So if you can see this here, we've got one saying, what else? And we've also got just regular photos. So these are the ones we're going to work with widely today. I'm going to be taking you through 6 different ways to use visuals in your work. And again, I want to frame this as this may be a tool that you want to use, one, if you are wanting to do a workshop, do a retreat, maybe you're a coach doing coaching. We can be using this in all of our work together. Now, a couple of other great resources, and again, I won't be showing you their photos, but another great resource of visual cards I continue to recommend is the Points of View, and it's called the Coaching Game. As you would notice here, it's a beautiful, beautiful deck of cards, and it comes with a wide variety of cards that they've put together. So we will not be using them, but I would invite you to check them out online, Points of View, Y-O-U, and it is called the Coaching Game. They also every year have a wonderful, wonderful journal. At least I hope next year they'll have it. They've had it for this past year. It's a great resource. Again, visuals connect with us in such a different way than the written word. Again, we're using a different part of the brain. And when we are working with different generations, when we're working with also people of different language abilities, whether it's English as a second language or you have a group where it's multilingual, different literacy rates, photos connect with people in a much, much deeper way. So as I said, today we're going to be going through 6 different processes. My hope is with this lab, like others, to give you some tools and resources and hopefully spark you a little bit so that you're interested in learning more. So visuals in our work. Today, I want to take us through 6 quick activities. I've done a little bit of pre-work here to set us up. And the first one that we're going to be looking at is setting intention. So again, at this time of year, setting intentions is key. Whether we're helping our clients look at setting their intention for the new year, or we are opening an event, it's really important that we are able to create the space to create some intention setting. So what I'm going to do just randomly, and I'm just looking at how the setup is working here, I'm going to just bring this forward a little bit so that I go out of frame and you can see everything a little bit more clearly. I've got a couple photos here, and again, the idea is setting intentions. I'd like you to just quickly look at these photos that I'm placing up here on the board, and I'd like you to set one. If you were to think of your own intention for the new year and what you want to create, what are the photos that really spark your curiosity? And I'm going to just continue to put these up. You may want to grab a worksheet, something that you can write on. These are several of the photos that we have in the Conversation Sparker deck. So as you think about your intention for continuing to listen here at today's call, what is a photo that represents what you would like to be listening through or listening as? Take a moment, please, and select one of the cards. And for yourself, just think through what's significant about this. How might this frame my intention for the new year? Take 1 minute to just note that for yourself. I personally like to invite people to do some intention setting at the start of any workshop. And while this is a virtual domain and a one-way passage of information, this can get people active and engaged right away. Then I'm going to just move this back so you can see me as I'm speaking. I think what's really critical in the start of any group process is, number one, to get people connected with the what's in it for me. So an activity like this, and again, I've only put out about 6 cards, but in a workshop where you have, say, 20 people, you'll usually want to bring at least 3 to 4 extra cards per person. So 20 people times 3 gives you 60 cards. 20 times 4 gives you 80 cards. A lot of the card decks, like my own, have generally about 60 to 80 cards. So these are the things that you'll want to think about as you really go and look at how are you setting up an activity where you are using visual cards. So that's activity number 1, using cards as a way to set an intention, whether you're working with people to have them set the intention for the new year, or whether you're working to have them set an intention around where they want to go in the learning event that you are working with them around. Now, second one, we're going to take these down, okay, and we're going to change up the photos. The second activity I wanted to share with you today is one that helps us look at connections. What do you bring? And again, in a group setting, helping people connect with what their connection point is can be really critical. So given that this is, again, not a live event where I can have you engage in the process, just as you're listening, I'd like you to think about if you were to describe yourself and what you bring to a typical learning environment, what is that image? We could do this a couple of ways. We could, number one, have people write out or create their own image of what they uniquely bring in a learning event. Alternatively, we could lay out photographs. And again, I'll put some more up here. So you can think about perhaps you're coming to an event and it really is about creating a stop or a pause. Maybe that's the analogy for you, that this is an opportunity to stop and pause and really be present in the event. If I was doing this in person, we'd have these cards laid out on a table, on a windowsill, again, that 4-to-1 ratio, 3-to-1 ratio, so that people have ample cards to be selecting from. Many of these, again, in a virtual domain, a little bit harder to do. So if I were working with the group virtually, we would not be putting them up like this. I'd be making sure that I had copyright access, a digital access path to the photos, and I would be able to send those out to people in advance so that they could see them, relate with them in a way that is really more, not in their face, but in a way that is more accessible to them. People do like to get up close and touch them, so you can't do that with a board like this. But for a one-way passage of information, a little bit easier than, say, holding this up. Okay, so just think about, from a facilitation standpoint, what's going to be useful for you to set things up. So connection, what do you bring? Really helping, again, starting off successfully in a group process. You want to be kicking off with an opportunity for people to connect with each other. The third activity I would like to just quickly share with you is one that I call Select a Card, okay? So very similar to the connection of what do you bring, Select a Card actually just gets us to think about what is the card which represents X. Let's say you're working with new leaders. You could now, again, change it up, and I would not be using visual cards throughout the entire conversation space, but Select a Card would be getting people to think about what are the cards which represent who you are as a leader. Maybe people create a story for themselves. So there's lots of different ways we can be doing this, and I know from experience of working with hundreds of coaches and trainers and facilitators over the last decade, actually thousands, cards spark conversations. That's why I called my deck Conversation Sparker Cards. Within the use of visuals, we want to make sure that we leave ample time for people to reflect. So if I was doing an activity like Select a Card with you, I would ask you first, select a card which represents who you are as a leader. I'd give you a minute or two to go and select the card, and then give you a couple of minutes to reflect on the card. Usually I have worksheets that are associated, and in fact, this became the grounds of a product that's going to be launching later this week. It's November the 24th. On Friday of this week, I'm going to be releasing the 40 ways to use your visual cards, to use any visual cards, whether you're using Conversation Sparker, the coaching game, looking at Visual Explorer. It's really important, I think, that we have a variety of tools and techniques and approaches to use. So beyond these 6 that I'm sharing with you today, the 40 ways e-manual, as I'm calling it, is going to give you actual strategies and techniques to be undertaking these types of activities within your own team and group work. So beyond Select a Card, after we've had people select their card that represents who they are as a leader or other, we then want to get people to think about and work around what is significant about this. So if I pick, say here, this card here, which is sort of a sunset, Or it could be a sunrise. Maybe I interpret that as the sun is coming up. I'm a new leader. I'm stepping in. I'm looking out to the horizon. It's really not too clear, but I do see that there is some light. I'm going to be using that light to help me accelerate the work that I do with my team. And within an activity like this, depending on numbers, we want to have people pair up. We may also want to have people share with someone else. So lots of different ways to work with selecting a card. If you're not working with leaders, maybe you want to select a card that represents what it means to be successful if you're working with business owners. Select a card that represents what it means to stretch for 2016. So this is activity number 3. So first one we did, intention. Second one, connection. What do you bring to the group? And third one, select a card. Now in our last blab number 4, the focus was all about visioning. Where are you going in your work? And using cards can be a very, very powerful way to get people into the span of vision. So what I'm going to do here, put vision over here. And again, from your perspective, if you join me in last week's blab, we looked at a couple of questions to get you thinking back on 2015 and thinking forward on 2016. To just start this activity right now, I'd like you to think of what is your vision for 2016? Maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a teacher. Again, I know that these blabs are attracting a wide range of people, which is a fantastic thing. So what is your vision for the new year? What is it that you want to be creating? And I'm going to place a few more photos up here on the wall. I'm just going to turn my attention. You can either come up with an image for yourself, but I want to give you a minute to think of what is your vision for the new year. What is your vision for the new year? Please take a moment to think about what your vision might look like for 2016. Okay, so I'm going to move this back now. And again, I'll invite you to continue reflecting on this. If you're listening to this as a recording, you can, of course, press pause. If this is live and you don't want to stop it, then you can just continue, and maybe this becomes an inquiry, a question that you think about as you move forward. Looking at all of these, visioning, we could be really using this now as a metaphor, as a visual metaphor for the next year. If we were doing more coaching work together and I was doing some one-on-one or group coaching with you, I might be giving you some field work, some assignment around, in the next week, I'd like you to create a story around that vision. What we do know, and again, continued research is we do know that in order to bring a vision to life, it needs to be written down, or it should be written down. We often need to refer to it regularly. So there's a dynamic tension and vision. Sometimes we want to say we want to put it out there, we want to let it go, but we may also want to keep it very visual. So another nice way that photo cards can really be of benefit. And again, for those interested, do check out our website, conversationsparker.com. That is one of the different websites. Often I get asked, well, you're at groupcoachingessentials.com, you're at potentialsrealized.com. The one around the photo cards is conversationsparker.com, and that's where you are going to find a couple of new things. Again, always looking to be filling a need in the marketplace. This month, the Teams Sparker cards got launched. They're a little bit different. They're a series of 52 questions for team leaders to be asking and using within their work with teams, and that's called the Teams 365 Team Sparker deck. So if you do work with leaders, that might be a product that you're interested in. And then, of course, later this week, we're going to have the 40 ways to use visual cards in your work with groups and teams launching. And that is 40 descriptive ways of how to use visual cards. There's not only the instructions, but there's a quote for you to use if you're bringing us into a session. There's tips on how to do it virtually. And of course, there's usually half a dozen or more conversation sparker questions. Because we all know as facilitators, we can really benefit from having more questions at our fingertips. So check all of those out. It will be all available through links at conversationsparker.com. And in fact, if you're interested in the 40 ways visual resources, it's an e-manual. It will be sent to you by PDF, personally from me. And that will be available to you on Friday, November 26th. So visioning, I hope that that's interesting. I have blab number 3. It's actually blab number 4 here at the Group Coaching Design Studio. A 5th activity, quickly want to share with you, is one around closure. Okay, so people remember the start and end of things, right? If we don't engage them, we're going to lose them. And in closure, it's really quite key to get people thinking about what are they taking away from the experience. So it's closure, added an extra R there. With closure, it's really important that we leave a space and time for people to pause and think about, what have you learned? What's been important? Again, your framing question may be different, but yet another way to work with cards in closure is to give people an opportunity now to select the card that represents what that learning experience has been for them. What would be the photo that represents what you'd like to share in terms of your learning? Or if you are having to end a group process, what is the photo that you would like to have to represent what that experience meant? You might go with the photos. You might even leave off with a question. And these probably aren't too visually clear, but I've got 2 of the questions from the Conversation Sparker deck. There are 22 in total. One question that just fell out of the deck was, what could get in the way? As you're thinking about your vision or what you've committed to going forward out of a workshop or a retreat, what could get in the way? Accountability is key as coaches, and we do always, I think, want to challenge people to think about, okay, you've got a great game plan, what next, and what could get in the way? And a favorite coaching question of mine, and I've expanded on this in the 40 ways to use visual cards, what else? So there is an activity that you'll see in the 40 ways to use visual cards called what else? I've tried to keep that resource. It's going to be only $40 to introduce. So that's $1 an activity. I think that's a real bonus. You can be using these, as I said, with a wide range of audiences, whether you're using the Conversation Sparker deck or you're using another visual deck, whether it's the JIT deck, whether it's the Visual Explorer deck, whether it's the coaching game, and there are many, many more out there. So finally, activity number 6 that I wanted to share with you today is lessons learned. And also part of closure, a little different than a closure of what do you want to remember, could be lessons learned. If you're working on project teams, again, having that project closeout work is really quite critical. And I know this from my past experience as a program manager. Again, in my world of work within the global community, every few months we'd be doing a lot of project evaluation, whether it was a project around disaster management or it was a project around educational curriculum development or healthcare. We were always asking ourselves, what are the lessons learned? What have been the key things that we have learned from this process? So similar to what we've looked at today, you can be asking that question using cards to help spark the insights. And again, you might be asking yourself, well, is this an opportunity for me to think about, just visual, or it can be more of a sparking question. Some of you might be a little bit leery thinking, oh, well, that's a little woo-woo at times. And in fact, what I found with industries like legal services, financial services, and safety, sometimes it's a little less risky, and I'm saying the word sometimes. Sometimes it's a little less risky to be asking a question and prompting people with a photo than just throwing a question out there midair. So a sixth activity is this lessons learned. Again, in the new 40 ways to use visual cards deck, you'll find more detailed instructions on how to use it. This is a bit of a hybridization just because it's a one-way passage of information. A little bit harder for me to lay these out. There is, again, something very unique about having people be able to touch the deck, be able to interact with the deck, and be able to associate with the deck. So we have had a couple of people joining us on today's call, and we are starting to move to the end of the call today, but you can, of course, always listen back at our YouTube replay. That's Effective Group Coach is the YouTube channel. You'll see videos going back 5 or 6 years now, because, of course, next month we move into our 6th anniversary of the release of Effective Group Coaching. Really hard for me to believe that it's been 6 years. Some of you may know me as the author of that book. I've really been privileged in the last 25 years to work extensively with groups, whether I've been facilitating training or coaching. So today, for those interested, want to leave you with one more link. And again, this is where you can find the 40 ways to use visual cards deck. Really quick and easy bit.ly link. It's simply http://bit.ly/40 visual ways. And that's going to be available to you as a digital download as of Friday. I hope that you've gotten inspired and sparked by some of these cards today. Again, we just had a selection of 8 or 10 of them on the board. The Conversation Sparker deck is a deck of 72, 22 questions, and 50 photographs. I would encourage you, and we've had a few people here, so maybe if you're on the line, I'd love for you to send a message and let me know, how might you be using this in your world of work? Is there something that you might be doing as you are moving forward with your work? Maybe you're deciding, yeah, I'm going to be using this with closure, or you know what, I have a visioning session coming up next week and I'm going to be bringing people, getting people to think about the photo that represents their vision. You do not have to have one of these decks that are already pre-made. You can make your own. Again, you can go to something like iStock Photos, and again, checking out the copyright accessibility, of course, looking at how you could be making your own selection of deck. It's a great tool. Again, it's one of many things we want to have in our toolkit. I felt strongly enough that it really warranted a dedicated focus. We did some of these on a first call, the first lab weeks ago, and really with the launch of the 40 cards, the 40 visual ways to use your cards, thought that it was really quite important to do. So we are back, and again, we've been doing broadcasts normally on a Thursday morning. This is our first Wednesday morning. It looks like it's a busy time. I know that Thanksgiving is coming up. So again, happy Thanksgiving. I hope that it'll be a day of gratitude and fun for all of you. In terms of when we are meeting next lab is Friday the 4th at 9 a.m. And just a reminder that on Friday the 4th, I'll be offering the next Inner Biz Leader Virtual Business Planning Retreat. That's a full-day virtual program dedicated to support you in your business planning for 2016. There are still spaces left. You can find access to that through coachingessentials.com. There's a link there. It'll take you to our Learning Lab and Design Studio. Wouldn't it be great to spend the day just focusing in on your plan? So I will be joining you at 9 o'clock that morning. The virtual retreat actually starts at 8 a.m. And you'll be working with me in fixed periods throughout the day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. That's Toronto or New York time. At 9 a.m. Eastern on Friday, December 4th, we are due to have our next lab. That'll be Group Coaching Design Studio lab number 6. And with that lab, we will be looking at 24 possible themes to be coaching around in 2016. Be well. Thanks for joining me. We're coming up at the half-hour mark. Again, it's Jennifer Britton, groupcoachingessentials.com, conversationsparker.com, and of course, 40 visual ways. It's http://bit.ly/40 visual ways. I hope that you'll check out this new digital resource and think about it as an additional tool in your toolkit. Be well. See you next Friday, December 4th, for lab number 6. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.